Humor is often a way to disguise trauma and discomfort and nervous system dysregulation. If you grew up in a family with addiction, a high conflict family, and you were always the person cracking jokes, you may be considered the jokester or the clown in your dysfunctional family. Hi, my name is Dr. Natalie Jones. I'm a licensed therapist. I've been counseling women and men who have experienced abuse, as well as those who have been perpetrators of abuse. And one of the members of the toxic family is the one who is always trying to offset the chaos, the toxicity, the abusiveness, the conflict through means of telling a joke. And they may have earned the role of the clown by always being the person that's trying to diffuse a situation through humor. In other words, they laugh to keep from crying, and it may be a defense mechanism that they carry with them throughout other aspects of life. So a lot of it's not uncommon for the jokester to also get in trouble in school because they can't all they do is they crack jokes, or they garner attention by doing something funny, or they're always trying to laugh, and even they may grow up and get in trouble in their marriage because they crack jokes all the time. If my memory serves me correctly, this is a situation that occurred between Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith, and where she talked about sometimes when they get in conflict, he's always funny, and that just makes her more mad. But that could also be a defense mechanism. And in fact, a lot of comedians come from very tumultuous families where they were just trying to survive, high conflict, families where there's a lot of abuse going on. That there is a link between comedy and abusive families, and that again they turn that into a skill for survival, and now it gets turned into a skill for income as well. But so cracking a joke sometimes can, people develop that skill to really diffuse the situation, to try to take the negative attention off of them, to try to take negative attention maybe off other people in the home or just the current situation. It's like, I'm going to try to make everyone laugh and make everyone smile because that's what's going to help keep me sane in the moment, or keep other people sane, or keep things in the house from escalating to the point of no return, especially in situations where there's extreme violence or extreme addiction. This is a survival mechanism. If you're not necessarily a comedian, there are, and I've done videos and podcasts on this before, there are people who struggle with nervous system dysregulation in that they laugh at what's considered, inappropriate times, just for simplicity's sake, because they can't regulate their nervous system. So again, another way that this defense mechanism comes up is smiling through pain, or laughing through their pain. Where, I've worked with women and men who, maybe have talked about being assaulted, and they have a smile on their face. And that is a defense mechanism. One, their mind and body are disconnected. So many of them who do this don't even know. So it's, there can be a lack of self-awareness. And then, again, too, they're trying to, this is a self-soothing mechanism that's trying to let them know that I'm okay, you're okay, in this situation, I'm okay, right? And a lot of people develop this mechanism to try to keep abusive people in a calm state, to try to, again, prevent them from escalating. Because if they were telling their story to their abuser and not me, that abuser would get highly offended and go off the rails, and, but they develop this defense mechanism to try to navigate situations and conversations with abusive people, and that is their way of saying that everything's okay, I'm fine, despite telling this really horrible thing. And it's really also a level of dissociation where they're talking about themselves in such a way, and it is a survival mentality, but it's also like how they try to numb themselves and keep withstanding pain. A lot of times people who are doing this are still very much in abusive or survivalist state. They just don't know it. But this has been a defense mechanism that they've developed to continue to stay in, situations, relationships, or emotional states that are not good for them. And so this is one of the reasons why I don't recommend doing things like gray rocking and stuff like that long term, because these kinds of mechanisms will come up and it does do some harm to your nervous system. I understand why people do it, but you have to also understand that there's going to be long-term consequences when you do it. Gray rocking is staying when you're having you're in an abusive relationship, or you're in an abusive encounter, or a toxic high conflict encounter, that you become dull and uninteresting. So you don't really engage full on with the conversation. You just become very uninteresting. You give very minute, very uninteresting and boring responses, minimal responses. However, you're still in an abusive situation. You still have chaos coming at you. And it's still doing something to your nervous system, regardless of what you're doing. There's often another aspect to it in abusive families or abuse relationships with abusers. Many people who are in those relationships are expected to keep up appearances. Again, albeit that's where the smile and laughter comes in, because you are expected to appear to be one big happy family, one happy relationship couple. You're on social media, so there's an expectation that you keep up the appearances, and that's why a lot of people, whenever you leave an abusive relationship, or whenever something comes out about it, I didn't even know. I never had any clue. They always seem to be smiling and happy and things like that. That is a defense mechanism, and that is something that they learn, because if you don't pretend, if you don't fake it till you make it, you might get oopsed upside your head, that kind of stuff. And it happens quite a bit. And so let me know, if you've known anybody who's been a jokester, or if you have been the jokester, the person that tries to diffuse conflict. And I think this happens a lot more than we think. But sometimes women, again, I've talked to women who've had some painful assault histories, and they may smile and laugh the whole time while telling the story, but they don't even know it. It's not meant to be funny. But that's that self-preservation, because if they stop laughing, the alternative is much more serious and dire. But they're expected to keep going. They're expected to keep going to work. They're expected to be mothers and fathers, whatever your role is. So you're expected to do your day-to-day life, go to school, do all the things in spite of everything that you have encountered. Hope that helps. Let me know what you think. Thanks so much.